Today begins the month of February, and our mission-themed series of Sunday school classes hosted by the Mission Committee. Our first guest this month today is Shauna Frost, who's joining us from Meals on Wheels, and Shauna's going to talk to us about what Meals on Wheels does and how what they do kind of works in conjunction with what the church supports. So Shauna, I will let you take it away. And when I duck out, it will not be anything personal. Just be me attending to my own miscommunication.
Well, I won't take it personally then. So thank you.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. Hello. Shauna Frost. I am the executive director for Meals on Wheels of Albuquerque. I will be there 8 years in my position coming in March. But before that, I was a volunteer for 7 years. So I've been with the organization for quite a while. I was a volunteer delivery driver. I used to work at the Commerce Board in their marketing department, actually. And Commerce Board has a corporate volunteer team. And so every Friday, somebody from Commerce Board goes and delivers a route for Meals on Wheels. And so that's how I got started being involved in the organization. And I really fell in love with the mission and what was happening. There's 3 groups that personally tug at my heartstrings that I think are important, and it's children, animals, and seniors are my 3 big ones. And I saw a lot of voices out there advocating for children, and I saw a lot of voices out there advocating for animals, and I didn't see a lot of voices out there advocating for the needs of seniors. And so, being in the marketing department, I was a graphic designer, and I had this skill set that a lot of nonprofit organizations really struggle. It's not something that they pay for. And so I asked, how can I get more involved? What else can I do for you and for this mission? And so I helped start a couple of committees for them, a marketing committee for them. I eventually joined the board, and I was on the board for a couple of years. And then Samantha Glaukamp, who's my predecessor, she decided to retire. And she said, I really think that you should apply for my position. And so I stepped back from the board and I applied for the position. And then they hired me, and the rest is history. And I've been there for 8 years. And I still love the mission as much today as I did when I started many, many years ago. And our mission is nourishing bodies and spirits with balanced meals and friendship. And did we have the video?
Yes, we do.
We'll start off with the video because I really think that's a great way to kind of get a really broad overview of the people that we serve and a little bit about what we do. So that video was put together by one of our volunteers who delivered that's not my video.
So sorry.
So that video was put together by a volunteer who delivers for us. He helped deliver for us through the pandemic. And he also owns a movie company and called Incredible Films. He does great work, and he's very invested in our mission. And so he does one of those videos for us once a year, once every other year. He comes in and he allows us to do those, which is amazing. And that video is our latest video. Obviously, it was done in 2019 because people didn't have the masks on yet. But it still makes me cry every time, and everything that is outlined in there, we still do, and we're able to do throughout the pandemic.
I'm hearing they're not totally hearing you.
Oh, I can take this off. If people can't hear me, I can take it off. Everybody's getting that. And so what I figured we would do today is just kind of have a conversation about who we are and what we do. I try not to be too formal within everything. I don't have a PowerPoint presentation. I'll start with, in addition to the video, I'll start with a story. It's one of my favorite stories about a gentleman named John. And he was a client who came to us a few years ago. And one of the things that we talk about at Meals on Wheels is that we deliver more than just a meal. And so when you sign up with Meals on Wheels, we're sending somebody to your door every day, and it's going to be the same person each week. So it's the same delivery driver on Monday, and every Monday it'll be the same person, and so on and so forth. So you really get a group of friends who learn to know you and know your habits, that you begin to feel comfortable talking to. And that's really, even more so than the food, a lot of times, is the most important aspect of the program. So John came to us to sign up, and we do have a wait list for our low-income program. And so he was on the wait list. And like many people on the wait list, what they'll do is they'll sign up for our private pay program maybe 1 or 2 days a week to help tide them over until they can get onto the free program and receive free meals each day. And he was on the program for a couple months, and he would see the same delivery driver every Monday, every Wednesday, every Friday. And he eventually got comfortable enough that when the delivery driver asked him, "Hey, are you okay? How are you doing?" He finally felt comfortable enough to say, "You know what? I am not doing okay. I have a problem. I'm still hungry, and I need help. I need more help than I'm able to get." And so what happened is the volunteer came back to us in the office, and he said, "John is saying he's struggling. What can we do to help him out?" So we called John, and it turned out that John was on Social Security, and he would get his Social Security check in the middle of the month instead of the beginning, but rent was due further. And he wasn't able to pay it. And he was getting late fees every single month because he could not pay his rent on time. And this was a real struggle for him. It prevented him from being able to do things like purchase more food, get proper food for his pet. He had a dog, things like that. And so we immediately took action. We said, "Okay, we don't want this to be an issue for you. We're going to take you off the private pay program, and we're just going to make you a spot on our life program and put him on the free meal program." So he went from paying 2 days a week to receiving 5 free meals every single week. And we said, "Okay, we're not letting you have a dog. Well, guess what? We're going to give you pet food." We have a partnership with Long Leash on Life. It is a pet store down on Montgomery, I believe. They donate pet food for us. We're going to get you some free pet food. We're also going to make sure that your dog is healthy, because we pay to go to the vet for your animal. If your dog needs to be walked, we can help provide that for you. We also have something called a Pantry Box Program, which you saw in the video. And so we started delivering extra food to him as well. And then we started calling around to our various nonprofit partners that we have, that we work with. And we said, this gentleman is having a problem paying his rent on time. Can you help? And we eventually found a nonprofit partner that said, yes, we can help. And they paid his rent a month in advance. So now that he was paying in advance on the 15th of the month, instead of being behind on the 15th of the month. So just by signing up for Meals on Wheels, completely changed his life. He has more food, his animal is taken care of, and he's not receiving those late fees anymore. And that's just one example of many that we have about the power of Meals on Wheels and the mission that we deliver on every single day. And so I wanted to start off with that because I love that story, and it warms my heart. It's one of my favorites. I'm happy to answer questions, by the way, as we go through. I don't want to just be a talking head, but I wanted to tell you a little bit about the different programs that we have. Because a lot of people think of Meals on Wheels, they automatically think you only deliver to seniors, you deliver one type of meal, that kind of thing. And there's a lot of misconceptions about who we are and what we do. So first and foremost, Meals on Wheels, although the majority of people that we serve are over the age of 60, we actually serve anyone of any age for any reason. During the pandemic, our youngest client was 4 years old. Right now, we have a client who's 24 years old. A lot of these individuals are members of the adult disabled community that don't have anywhere else to go except for Meals on Wheels. A lot of people think you sign up, you get a meal delivered, and that's that. So we actually deliver 8 different types of diets for a number of different medical conditions. So we have a regular diet, which is not, sodium or fat restricted. It's specifically designed, to be delicious, because we want people to eat food. But it's also designed to combat malnutrition. Malnutrition, especially in seniors, is the #1 co-presenting factor when somebody's admitted into the hospital. One of the main reasons why they're there is because they are malnourished and their body is unable to do the things that it needs to do because it doesn't have the right nutrition. So that's our first and foremost, that's #1. We also have diets for diabetes, for heart disease, for renal failure. We have a vegetarian diet. We're also the only home delivered meal program in the Albuquerque area that can deliver textured diets. So if people have trouble chewing or swallowing, we have 3 different types of diets. One is the size of a sugar cube, one is the size of a grain of rice, and one is a full puree. And we are the only program that can deliver that to the home. So a lot of people who would like to age in place, what prevents them from doing that is being able to eat safely in their home. And so we provide the meals for them to be able to do that. We don't do gluten-free. It's really, we actually get a lot of people asking for that. The way that the kitchen set is set up, we would have to do it in a completely different area of the kitchen in order to prevent cross-contamination. And we don't have that ability at this point in time. So we don't want to mislead people and say, we could do gluten-free, and then they're actually having, cross-contamination. Yes. We get a lot of requests for gluten-free, and we also get a lot of requests for kosher meats, actually. And those are 2 that we currently don't do. We can do gluten sensitive, but we can't do gluten free. Yeah. So in addition to the 8 different types of diets, we can further tailor your meals with about 10 different allergy accommodations that we can do. So no peanuts, no eggs, no citrus. We can do, for people who are on a Coumadin, some type of a Coumadin medicine, we can do no dark greens. We can do no pork. We can also do no fish. And so there's a lot of variation that we're able to do in a rather small space. The kitchen staff, I have to give kudos to the kitchen staff because the logistics that they have figured out in order to be able to do that every single day is pretty impressive. So we do offer really a wide variety of things that we are able to do. As you saw in the video, we have our own kitchen. So we are housed within Presbyterian Northside building. So it's right over by eye associates. There's urgent care in that building. We are downstairs in the kitchen. Presbyterian is amazingly generous to us. They lease us the space, the office space, the kitchen space for $1 a year. So, which is very kind of them. And we're very good tenants.
Did they raise it 6% this year?
They did not. We are very good tenants and we pay, 3 years in advance. Yes.
One thing is good.
Exactly. But everything's done fresh. Everything is made fresh there every single day. Another program that we have that a lot of people aren't aware of is something we call the local harvest program. So a lot of the food that we're sending out is actually grown right here in Albuquerque or in New Mexico. We try to send something out, if not every day, then at least once or twice a week. As you've heard, all the milk is local. Of course, all our green and red chili are local. Absolutely silly not to do that. Tamales are local. Tortillas are local. During the pandemic, when we kind of pulled back and we did mostly frozen meals, it was hard to do like fresh vegetables and then freeze them. So what we would do is we would send out a lot of whole products. So we did whole heads of lettuce that people could make into salads. We did jars of jams and jellies. We did salsas. We did loaves of bread and packages of tortillas and things like that. But that is a grant and donor supported program that people donate to. And then we put that money right back into the community, back into those local farms, back into those local manufacturers. So it's really a win-win-win. Our clients get local food that they might not be able to have on a regular basis, and the local farmers have a steady stream of income that we're helping to provide them. We don't turn anyone away. So our motto is anyone of any age for any reason. And so when somebody comes to us to sign up for the program, what we do is we look at their income. And if somebody can pay for their meal, we ask for them to pay for their meal. And if they can't pay for their meals, then we say, okay, we're going to subsidize you or we're going to pay for your meals.
What does it cost to get on that 3-day program or whatever?
It really depends. It depends on your income. So it can range from free all the way up to $10.25 for a meal. And a meal, that's one thing that I did not actually go into. A meal is a center plate, so that's your main. And then 1 or 2 sides, so you get a vegetable, rice, potatoes, sometimes 1 or 2, depending on what your diet is. And then you get a small salad, a small dessert, and then an optional milk. So you can get that delivered to your door for about $10 at the max. That's the max.
Dinner. That's what you get, right? I mean,
that's what you get. It comes during lunchtime. So some people choose to eat it right then at lunch, and some people choose to save it and eat it during dinner. That's correct. Another thing that is unique to our program is that we do have the ability and the option to add breakfast and a dinner or a snack onto that as well. And so we could technically deliver breakfast, lunch, and dinner to your door, which is something that is pretty unique to our program. You don't find that everywhere. Yeah, thank you. That's a good question.
Do the meals come cold and then they microwave them?
So it depends on what meal you're getting. So the lunch meal, the daily lunch meal, that's the center plate, the 2 sides, the salad, and the dessert comes hot. So we cook it in the morning. Our chefs get there. One set gets there at 4, and then another set gets there at 5, and then the rest come in at 6. And they cook it fresh every day. And so they're doing that in the morning, and then they're out and gone by noon because they're there so early. And then the office staff handles the administrative stuff, generally in the afternoon. Yeah, that's a good question. We do offer a frozen meal program. So we have a really low food waste rate. It's like 2 or 3%. We actually end up throwing away. And most of that is like the ends of zucchini and things like that. The reason why we're able to keep that so low is because any food that we don't use, that doesn't go into a hot meal to be delivered, we can then freeze it. And we do offer frozen meals. They're a little bit lower cost because we don't. Was that a question? No. Oh, okay. I just didn't want to miss anything. It doesn't come with the side pack, which is the salad, the dessert, and the milk. It's just the frozen portion. So it is a little bit less expensive for people who are paying for their meals. But those are delivered all on one day. And the reason why we do this, it offers a lot more flexibility. A really good example would be people who are on a renal diet that have dialysis. Or people who are dealing with significant chronic conditions that have lots of doctor's appointments. We deliver our meals between 10:30 in the morning and 1 p.m. We ask people to be home because that's when our volunteers are out delivering. So if that's a struggle for people to do on a daily basis, we say, okay, you can get frozen meals if you would like, and then you only have to, worry about being home one day in order to receive those meals. And so it's worked out really well for us to be able to make a lot of accommodations for people who have different scenarios that would prevent them from being home on a regular basis. Yep. Good question. Thank you.
Thank you. This seems like a really complex scenario
It is.
to be taken care of in about 6 hours in the morning.
Yep.
How many people do you have on your staff?
Yeah, so we have 16 people on our staff, and that's it.
Well,
So it's not a lot. We have 6 people in the office.
The drivers are volunteers.
The drivers are all volunteers. So I'll get to that in a second because the volunteers blow my mind. I'm amazed every day. But 6 people are in the office that handle the administration. So all the client signups, any cancellations, any meal changes, anything like that, that's all handled in the office. And then the rest are in the kitchen. And that's who makes the meals every day. And then to help us out, we have a volunteer force. And our volunteer force is about 550 individuals that help us out. And they're the group that delivers the meals on a daily basis. We wouldn't be able to do it without them. We have 37 different routes across the greater Albuquerque area every single day. Monday, when I say every day, I mean Monday through Friday. We do allow our staff to have time off. So we don't deliver on Saturdays or Sundays, but Monday through Friday, 37 routes every single day. And there's between 6 and 12 people on each of those routes every single day. And so one of the things that we do that I'm always impressed with because it's hard is the logistics of it. So how do you tell what volunteer where to go, how to get there, who they're going to, what meal is that person getting every single day? And so that's a lot of what the administrative staff does on a daily basis is working that out. We do have, we actually just switched. So we used to have paper route sheets. So the volunteers would show up and they would get a paper and the paper would say, these are the people that you're delivering to, and here's some printed instructions on how to get there. And here's the meals that you're delivering. January 1st, we just went to, it's an app on your phone. So we do provide tablets for people who don't feel comfortable using it on their phone. But it's HIPAA compliant and it actually connects with the map on your phone. So instead of trying to drive and read directions, it will tell you where to go. And we estimate that will save us about 50,000 pieces of paper every single year. So we're really excited about that. Another thing that we do that I forgot to mention that was on the video is we have a partnership with the Albuquerque Journal. And so every time somebody gets a delivery, we can deliver them a free newspaper if they would like. So Albuquerque Journal provides us the newspapers. The the clients, raise their, yes, I would like a newspaper with my delivery, and then the volunteer also delivers that. So, and the app tells them who gets a newspaper and who doesn't. Yes. We also do pet food once a month, like I mentioned. Our pet program is one of my favorite programs. I would say back in 2008 is when the program actually started. And Meals on Wheels America had done a study that talked about the importance of pets and seniors specifically. So about 80% of the people that we deliver to, the volunteers, the only person that they see on a regular basis. So pets really fill an important void in a lot of people's lives. They provide companionship. There's studies that have been done that if you are ill or if you have a broken bone, you will actually heal faster by having a pet that you care about with you in the home. And so it was really important for us to be able to take care of that pet and make sure that a client's pet was happy and healthy as much as the client was happy and healthy, because the two are so closely related to each other. And so a study by Meals on Wheels America found that a lot of the clients were actually sharing their food with the pet. And so obviously that's not good. It's not good for the pet and not good for the client. And so we started a program where we delivered pet food to clients who had a pet who needed to feed that pet. And since then, that program has grown. It started with food. And since that time, and with the number of donations that we get into that program in particular, we've been able to add emergency and veterinary care. So our clients are able to take their animals to the vet once a year for a well check, as well as to the vet for any emergencies. We noticed that a lot of dogs weren't being exercised properly, because if you're homebound, it's really hard to go walk your dog. And so dog walking services is something that we are able to provide. We're able to provide emergency boarding services. So if a client does end up in the hospital, lots of times that pet could potentially end up in a shelter because the client can no longer take care of that pet. So emergency boarding services for pets while a client is in the hospital. We also do mobile grooming for animals. So they can have their animal groomed twice a year. And then this year, I'm hoping to be able to start mobile pet adoption. So that was something we were working on starting in 2020. We were obviously unable to start that, but we're hoping that this year will be a year that we're able to begin doing that for them as well.
So mobile pet adoption, that means you bring the pets that are adoptable around, and that's great.
Yeah, so we're working with a partnership with Watermelon Mountain Ranch. And what happens is the client will fill out a questionnaire about personality and lifestyle and things like that. And then Watermelon Mountain Ranch will find animals that they have that they think will fit the lifestyle and the personality of that client. And then they have a mobile adoption unit. They will take that mobile adoption unit and they will go to that client's home in order to help them get a pet. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing what can happen when people come together and put their heads together and try to solve problems that we see. So that's one of my favorite programs is the pet program. Yes.
So how has the last couple of years looked like for you guys then? So did services have to get cut, or did people were you able to maintain it all?
So we were able to maintain, and we were actually able to increase. So in 2020, we added an additional 500 individuals to our program, and we were able to do this through the generosity of others. And so we had a lot of grants that we were able to apply for that provided emergency funding. and a lot of individual donations came in. And so we were able to add 500 people. One of the biggest changes that happened is we deliver hot meals Monday through Friday. A lot of our volunteers are retired, end of retirement age, because I mean, we deliver in the middle of the day. It's hard to have a job and then, you know, be like, sorry, I have to leave at 10:30. Like sometimes they don't like that. And so we were worried that the volunteers were in an age group that was at high risk. We were worried that our clients were in an age group and in a medical condition that also put them at high risk. So what we did is, instead of delivering a hot meal, one hot meal, Monday through Friday, we shrunk it down and everybody started getting frozen meals, and they would get all their frozen meals on one particular day. And then we would do wellness calls throughout the rest of the week. And so that was probably the biggest change that we had. And we ran that program for a total of, I would say, 8 months. So we did it at the very beginning of the pandemic. We went back to hot meals, and then as cases started to rise again, we went back to the frozen meal delivery. So that was probably the biggest change that happened during the pandemic. We are back to hot meal delivery now. We have decided that we probably would not go back to frozen meal delivery. We put other things in place that we feel are appropriate to help keep everybody safe. So masks, we provide masks to all our volunteers. We provide hand sanitizer to all our volunteers. The delivery process now is we put the meal in a bag. We put the bag by the door, and then we step back 6 feet so that there's still that 6 feet of difference or of separation, but the volunteer and the client are still able to see and talk to each other and have that wellness check every day. So it was really busy because of those 500 additional folks. The phone calls we would get were really heartbreaking. We would get phone calls from people who, you know, had been trying to make it on their own, that just couldn't do it anymore. People who were afraid to go to the grocery store, and they would call us and they would cry on the phone because they didn't know where their food was going to come from, because they couldn't get out. They didn't have family in the area. They couldn't rely on their friends because their friends didn't want to come by anymore. And so it was really heartbreaking, especially right there at the beginning, trying to figure out how can we do this? How can we keep going with what we're doing? We knew it was so important. We knew that as everything else was shutting down, that was something that we couldn't do. And so how do we do that? How do we keep our employees safe? How do we keep our volunteers safe? And how do we keep food going? And I have to give kudos to the staff who said, you know, we're going to come into work every day. We're going to come into work every day to get this done, because what we do is important enough that I be there. Because I mean, cooking food is not something you can do without. You have to be there every day. And kudos to the members of the community and the grant providers and the churches who said, here's funds so that you can add people, so that you can do what you need to do when it's hard and things are expensive, and go and help. And if it wasn't for those two things combined, I don't know if we would have been able to continue on. But we were. It was hard. We've put about 90 of the people. A lot of people dropped off after things got a little bit better, but we've been able to add about 90 people permanently to the low-income program, people who didn't leave after things got a little bit better. They decided to remain on the program. And so we made that commitment to them. You know, if you sign up with us, like you will continue to have a meal as long as you are signed up with us. We will find the funds to be able to. Yeah. I don't think I ever answered your question. I did. It's about between $7 and $10.25.
You said 10.
10, yeah, at the max. And internally, our meal cost, it fluctuates, especially lately with the supply chain being so outrageous. But it fluctuates. It's around $8 for us to get a meal out the door.
For me, it hasn't been fluctuating, it's been rising.
Exactly. Right now it's about $8 for us to get a meal out the door. So depending on where you fall on the private paid scale, you could be potentially subsidizing somebody else who can't afford to pay the full price.
Right.
Good question.
That one story you told was good, the one where the guy, you know, the delivery guy recognized the problem and brought it in. Is there anything, and then you got the wellness checks, and I think all of that, you know, the visitation, the wellness check, a lot of that is real important stuff too, and that's a big part of the deal, I think. And, what I'm wondering though is that a formalized thing with the volunteers? It's kind of hard to turn them into social workers or whatever, but it's a great point of contact. As I said, for your son, we had a great thing last week on a different program that provided a lot of social services, right, in one spot. Never mind that. That was a great program. Great program. Tell them I said so. But yeah, just the question is, I suppose, what kind of social services are formally put into the thing? You're telling your volunteers probably to look for that stuff, but you know, how does that work?
So that's another great question. Thank you. Obviously, our volunteers are not social workers. We have a very small staff, so.
But they have big hearts.
So there are certain things that we are able to do to help facilitate that and get people to the right place. And so the first thing that we do is we train our volunteers. And so we have something called More Than a Meal training that we offer at least once a year to our volunteers to train them what to look for. And so it's, what does a stroke look like? You know, what does somebody walking on a broken hip look like? Because that happens sometimes. What might it look like if somebody is becoming malnourished, maybe because they have dental issues? What are some safety hazards that you can spot just looking in somebody's front door? What are some things that you can look for? And so we do have a formal training that volunteers go through in order to help call those out and identify them so that people are aware. In addition, we have a formalized process for reporting back to the office things that people might recognize or see. So it's changed a little bit since we've gone to the online program. Everything is actually routed to us through the computer, which is very convenient. And you can, the volunteer just says, hey, this person, I noticed this person has lost a bunch of weight in the past couple weeks. Or, hey, this person is limping, or this person's not even eating their meals, or I think this person might be having a medical issue. They don't have to, they just have to describe it. They don't have to name it. And then what that does is it kicks it back to the office, and the office follows up, and we follow up every day. So things don't sit in the pile and then wait, and then hopefully we'll get to it. Things are followed up on every day. This is another big piece of the puzzle. If somebody is scheduled to get a delivery and they are not home, we call them every day. We call the client 95% of the time. Oh, I was in the backyard, I didn't hear you, or oh, I was in the restroom, or I had a doctor's appointment, I forgot to tell you. But then there's that other 5% where we can't get a hold of that client. So we call their emergency contact. And depending on if we can get a hold of the emergency contact or not, what the emergency contact says, we might need to call in a wellness check. We've done a number of those. And I can't count on my fingers and my toes the number of times We've had a wellness check where somebody has fallen or broken an arm, broken a hip, had a stroke, had a heart attack, and they're just laying on the floor. And if it hadn't been for that follow-up and that persistent follow-up, who knows how long that person might have been there.
Is the wellness check done by the police?
The wellness check can be it's either done by the police or it's done by their emergency contact if we can get to their emergency contact. That's correct. Going back to the things that are reported to us, either malnutrition or some kind of something that's off. The office then calls that client, talks to the client about, we had a concern. We're concerned you're not eating. We're concerned that, you might be having like some kind of a medical issue, that kind of thing. And then what the staff does is the staff connects them to additional resources. So we don't have the capacity to provide those resources ourselves. But we do have the capacity to be able to find and connect them. We are part of a program called Accountable Healthy Communities. We actually used to meet downstairs at this church. It's been going on for about 4 years, but they built this database called NowPow. I don't know why they call it NowPow. It's a very odd name. But it's basically a database of resources. And so we could go into the NowPow database and we can say rental. And it will pull up all the resources that are in the Albuquerque area in order to find rental assistance. And then we start connecting the client to those resources. And so that's generally how we do it. So we don't provide social work ourselves, but we do make sure that we get a connection with the client.
So then, your person who's delivering the meal is able to determine if a person is not eating?
They don't have to determine that they're not eating. They just have to say, hey, this person lost weight. Or, hey, I went to put the meals in somebody's refrigerator and there's 10 in there.
Right. Okay.
So those are the things that we're asking them to look for. We're not asking them to make a diagnosis. It's just, if you see something, say something, and we'll figure it out, is basically what we try to do. Yeah. You had a question? Somebody over here?
I was just going to ask how many clients you have on average.
Yes, so we serve about 1,200 clients a year. We do between 500 and 600 hot meals every single day.
Wow.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. We do, so when we call it the line, and the line is basically the place where all the meals are put together before they get sent out. We're making a meal every 30 seconds.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep. And they're all different, which is pretty impressive. So.
How does the connection work between the national organization and the local?
Yes. Thank you for asking that. So there's a common misconception that we are like a subsidiary of Meals on Wheels America. We are not.
Okay.
We are a member organization, but they provide no guidance and they provide no funding. So what they do provide is they'll do advocacy in Washington for the older Americans Act, which we actually don't receive that. I'll go into that in a second. They do research projects. They provide connections between individual programs. So if I say, hey, I'm thinking about starting a cafe, and I said, do you know anybody else that has a cafe? And they're like, oh, yeah, this program over here in Colorado has a cafe. Here's the contact information. So they provide networking and stuff, but they don't tell us how to run the program. So there's no guidelines. Like we don't have to meet certain criteria to be a Meals on Wheels program. And they also don't provide funding. So they do offer some connections to third-party fundraising. So Subaru Share the Love is probably the biggest one that they do. So they've worked out with Subaru nationally to raise funds. And then that gets filtered down to the individual programs. But Meals on Wheels America is not like $10,000 for being a member program. They don't do that. Regardless, we still have to apply for that grant. Yes. So even though there's Meals on Wheels programs across the country, you'll find that each and every one is different. They all have a different structure. They all serve different people. Not all of them do 8 different types of meals. A lot of them, they'll use what's called a caterer to make their meals. So they're using somebody else to make their meals and they don't have their own kitchen, that kind of thing. So they're all different. And then another thing that you'll find is some of the Meals on Wheels programs are not affiliated with Meals on Wheels America. So Meals on Wheels has become common use, is what they call it, which means that it can't be trademarked. So anybody can call themselves Meals on Wheels, and they're not necessarily associated with the Meals on Wheels America organization. So that was kind of convoluted. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Another thing I wanted to talk about is the funding. So many programs take government funding from a program called the Older Americans Act. It comes from Congress, it's appropriated, it's sent through the states and then out to individual programs through area agency on aging. There's a lot of bureaucracy involved with that and a lot of restrictions involved with that. We do not rely on government funding. We have a very small portion of it's EFSP funds is what they call it, which is the government program, but it doesn't have the restrictions that Older Americans Act would have. The Older Americans Act restricts the age that you can deliver, it restricts types of diets that you can deliver, that kind of thing. So the majority of our funding is private. So that's why we have the private pay program. That's why we do a lot of grant writing. We have a lot of private grants and corporate grants that are donated to us that support the low income program that we have. And then a lot of individual fundraising is what we rely on in order to be able to do what we do. So there is a program in Albuquerque. It's the Albuquerque Department of Senior Affairs. They are a separate program for us. That is government funded. That does come through the Older Americans Act. A lot of people try to think like, well, maybe you guys are like competition with each other. We're not really competition with each other. There's some restrictions on the types of insurance that somebody can have in order to be on our program that would exclude them. And so we actually do a lot of referrals back and forth. So if somebody is under the age of 60 and they can't help them, they're sending them to our program. If somebody is over the age of 60 and they don't need a specialized or tailored diet, then we're sending them to the city program because the city program is going to be able to help them out for less expensive and quicker than we would be able to. So there's a lot of referrals going back and forth. I like to think that we work really well together actually to help fill the gaps in the need throughout Albuquerque. But some of the Meals on Wheels programs across the country take Older Americans Act funding, and some of them are privately funded by us. So it's like a huge range of different types of Meals on Wheels programs that you'll find. Does anybody else have any other questions?
Have you been looking at this summer?
No. Oh, forgot. I'm glad you brought that up. So we are celebrating our 50th year in existence this year.
My son is now 1, and for me, he was born. I was about to be.
Oh, that's great. So no, I've been involved for the last 50 years. No, 50 years this year, 1972 to 2022. So we're having everything that we're doing is really 50th anniversary themed this year. I had an archivist come in a couple of years ago and really start to compile a lot of stuff and digitize it. And so we will be putting out throughout the year different photographs and videos and documentation and things like that from throughout the years. And so it's really cool. It's such a privilege to be a part of. One of the things that really struck me as I was going through the archives and learning about the beginnings of Meals on Wheels is how little has actually changed about the program. The base of the program is you're hungry, we're going to feed you, we're going to deliver it to your door, we're going to be a friendly face, and a wellness check. And how we do those things might have changed, but the basics have not. We're still delivering to people's doors, we're still using volunteers to deliver to people's doors, we're still following up to make sure people are safe and healthy. And so the fact that it has changed so little and how it works over the last 50 years, I think speaks volumes to how strong the foundation was when it was first created 50 years ago. And so it's truly a blessing to be able to be involved in it at this point in time. It's very exciting. We have a lot of really exciting things on the horizon. One of the things that we're working on probably in the next 3 to 5 years is an expansion. So a number of different areas that we're expanding. The first one is to underserved populations within the Albuquerque community. So making sure that we're really reaching out to the different communities that might not know about us, the communities that might not understand that we're available to them, anyone of any age for any reason. We've also started receiving a number of phone calls for face-to-face deliveries in places like Bernalillo City, as well as Los Lunas and Belen. And so we are going to look at, is that a possibility for us to be able to establish delivery routes down there? So expanding that way. Another thing that we're looking at is expanding outside of central New Mexico. So this wouldn't be Meals on Wheels establishing additional kitchens or anything. What this would be Meals on Wheels partnering with organizations that are already serving those communities. And saying, what do we have that you don't, that we can provide to you? So as I mentioned before, or that some of you all have hinted at, the logistics of the program that we have set up here, the fact that we can manage 1,200 individual diets, we can tell you what day to deliver, we can tell you how to get there, is pretty unique. We've spent a lot of time building that. So if we can provide that to another organization in a rural community that doesn't have that capability, we want to be able to do that. The fact that we have the 8 different types of diets is pretty unique. And might not be something that a rural community has available to them, but they might need. Okay, well, how can we get those meals to you so that you can provide that to the individuals in your community? So those are the things that we're working on in the next 3 to 5 years that we're really excited about. But I really think build on the tradition that was started 50 years ago. We're gonna feed people. We're gonna feed people. We're gonna make sure that people are healthy. Yeah.
Well, one of the ending questions we often have for our mission partners is speaking to the church and speaking to the members here today and the contacts we have. What do you guys need? How do we continue to help you? What is it that you're looking for, whether it's money or people or other ideas you have?
Yeah, so I would say the 2 largest needs for us, and they're always the 2 largest needs, are funding and people. So
You already knew.
How can we do it?
Signing up to be a volunteer. Obviously it's not for everybody, but if you do have 2 hours once a week that you're able to give, we would love to have you on our volunteer team. We make it easy. One of the other things that changed from the pandemic is our training is online now. We used to do face-to-face, but now we're doing online training. It's very easy. We have a fabulous volunteer coordinator who kind of lays it out step by step by step. But we always need people to step up and to do that delivery. And then the other thing is the funding. It costs money to be able to do what we do. We're different than a food pantry. You can't donate $1 to us and then we deliver 10 meals. That's not something we can do. The food that we get is not donated. We have to purchase the food just like a restaurant would purchase the food. And so lots of that, some of that is because we're doing prepared meals, we have to have a chain of custody for what we're doing. The other part of that is because we're doing medical meals. And we have to be able to say, we have to know what's going in those meals. We work on a 10-week menu that's already prearranged and approved by a dietitian. And lots of times if you're getting new food from a food bank, Roadrunner can't say in 3 weeks, we're going to have 300 pounds of green beans for you, guaranteed. Like they can't do that. So we have to purchase our food. It's cooked in-house, just like a restaurant, we cook it in-house. And so there's a lot of costs that are associated with what we do that you don't typically find in other food programs, food charity programs. And so sometimes it's harder for us because that $1 that could feed 10 people at somebody else's program, we actually need 10 more of those dollars to be able to feed somebody. And so, that funding is very important. And we have a number of different programs that are grant and donor supported. Obviously, so the low income program, low income food enrichment, that we call it LIFE. That is the program where the donations go to giving food to the individuals who can't afford it for themselves. We have the PET program, that's grant and donor supported. We have the local harvest program, that's purchasing local items. That's grant and donor supported. There's a number of different things that are available, and they all need support. So those are probably the two biggest.
And I assume your website has donation capability.
Absolutely.
Is that usually how you get most of the?
Checks. If y'all are ever interested in if you've raised some funds, well, not even if you've raised funds, if you just want to come in for a tour and actually see how it works. We recently opened tours back up for our kitchen, and so we do tours less than 10 at a time. But yeah, in the mornings you can come in and see how everything works and come on in and do that. That's something that we would love to have you get a little bit more involved in and kind of see how it actually works and how we get those 600 meals out every single day.
So you have volunteers at all levels of your organization, or mostly the meal charity?
So in the before times, 2020, we would have volunteers everywhere. So we had volunteers in the kitchen, we had volunteers delivering, we had volunteers help with some paperwork in the office, that kind of thing. Since 2020, we've really stepped back from that, and the majority of our volunteers now are in a delivery capacity, or they are in a volunteer management capacity. So we have what we call a volunteer or a site coordinator, and they basically run the volunteer program for the day. And volunteers have questions, they're asking the site coordinator, hey, I couldn't get a hold of this person, or like, what does this note mean, or that kind of thing. And those are really the two main that we have. We have some office stuff that we're allowing people to do remotely. And then like for the PET program, we have some volunteers who come in and like pack that food and stuff like that. We don't have volunteers in the kitchen anymore. It's just too tight quarters. Then we stopped that. Yeah.
Well, this was really great. Thank you very much. If anyone has any more questions, we just have a couple minutes left. The other benefit, which some would have seen at the early service, or maybe you knew from communications, our youth fundraiser that happens next Sunday, the Super Bowl for Caring, is actually all going to Meals on Wheels this year. So sometimes that's gone to Rio Grande Food Pantry, but this year they are getting whatever we collect in the pot next Sunday. So we need to be generous for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great.
Do you have anything else you want to end with, or?
No, just thank you. Being a program that's not government supported, we are supported by people like you and by organizations like this. And it's because of your generosity that we are able to do what we do. And it's because of your generosity that we've been able to do that for 50 years. And hopefully 50 years in the future. So thank you for allowing me to come in and talk about the program and asking really great questions. Sometimes I go, nobody has any questions. I'm like, okay. But some great questions today, so thank you for letting me talk to you all about it.
Yeah.
It's so important, so thank you.
We really appreciate you keeping here. It's been, what, decades? I mean, Kathy, you can speak to this a little bit too. I mean, I'm curious how many years of the 50 years First Pres has been connected with Meals on Wheels, because I do know from my mission history is that, you're one of our mainstays, or one of our foundational mission partners that we've always had. So,
So I think, if I remember correctly, and a lot of this I'm learning from reading.
Don't do that.
But I think that, the women, and there was a couple gentlemen who helped start the program, but I think some of them came from Presbyterian. Yeah.
Can you answer that too? Claire, we have various people that have been here for all the time. Well, thank you so much. If anyone else has any questions, we can visit her. All right, thank you, Shauna.
Thank you so much.
So the super